there! You might know me around these parts as Backstage Magic, but on the wider internet, I'm known as Hexdon. And I'm the maker of the Juppet. For the Hermitcraft charity auction this year. Apologies, this is a bit of a slideshow, as trying to record video of the process of making him didn't really work out, so most of this is pictures. Actually, almost all of this is pictures. If prop making behind the scenes of media is something that fits your fancy, feel free to hit that subscribe button and stick around. I've got some fun stuff coming, but if you just like my vibes, feel free to head on over to Hexdon. But after this video. Now, onwards for what you came here for, the Juppet. So a bit of a backstory for anybody who doesn't know. The Juppet is a version of Joe Hill's that was created in Season 10 of Hermitcraft. From what I can remember of the lore, Joe came up with the idea that any of the skins that have just like big eyes on the face and doesn't look like they've got a mouth do in fact have a mouth, but it's below the head and can only be seen when they bob the head. He created the Juppet skin for himself to show this, and well, the rest is history. I had started to kick around the idea of making one around the time of the 2025 Gamers for Giving event with the Hermits, as I had wanted to make a new Muppet for my portfolio for a while. I figured this would allow me to build one from an established idea, make it, and then know it went to a good cause. I reached out to Joe in May of 2025 with plans and the concept of making it, and let's just say it didn't take much convincing. So it began. With the sketch in hand, I set out trying to source the materials. I wanted to make this as true to Muppet as I physically could, and wanted to use as many materials that they would in their creation. While at the Prop Expo later that May, I got to talk with a bunch of others, and they were able to point me in the direction of the right foam and modern Muppet fleece for the project. With the items sourced, I slowly got to getting everything. The pattern. In the original sketch, I played out in the base idea of how I wanted the shape in reticulated foam. I searched around for patterns that would work, but I wasn't happy with one or another for a particular reason. They just seemed to be the right shape, or they sat wrong on the body. So what I did was I took what is a standard ball head, and using plates that would form the mouth, I opened it up so it sat a little bit wider than they normally would be. Instead of it being more spherical, it does actually have a little bit more of an oblong shape. Once I had that established, it also hid the seam in the middle of the face a little bit nicer. Next thing to get patterned out was the body. Again, I struggled to find one that would work. I wanted something that was a little bit more than a straight tube, but could also give it character. I was able to find one pattern through a blurry image that gave the right shape. The larger curves that come together form the shoulders, and the smaller V comes together to bring the chest and the back, allowing them to still be a general tube shape, but have the character that I was wanting. I noticed afterwards, getting the full pattern onto paper, I didn't like how short it was, even to scale, so I added another 1.5 inches to the bottom. With the 0.25 inch thick foam, it worked out pretty well. From there, I figured out the placement of the arms, as they would be the defining thing for the length of the arms in general. There was a really nice section of the shoulder curve, and I found that if I set it just at the bottom of the curve, they sit perfectly. For the arms, I cut out 2 pieces of foam for each one. This allowed me to put wire through the hands that goes almost to the elbow, and allowing it to have more structure and the ability to pose them. Along with that, having the extra thickness of the arms allowed me to trim away so I can make them rounded. You can see the before and after comparison here. This was the last bit I used for the foam. If you're curious about the adhesive, it's all contact cement, so that it doesn't dissolve this type of foam. The fleece. Proper Muppet fleece is a multi-stretch fleece that has a low pile to it. It allows them to have this soft but kind of furry texture and allow the fabric to be able to be pulled and stretched over top of the foam to make sure it's as snug as possible. I was very, very determined trying to find this, as I wanted to make it as accurate Muppet as I could. Through the shop that I got the reticulated foam, they also sold Muppet fleece, and I was able to get it from them. They didn't have the color that I was satisfied with, so I bought white and custom dyed it. It took about and 3/4 of a bottle of Kentucky Sky, and just less than 1/4 of a bottle of Tropical Teal. The ratios are kind of skewed. I did a dip dye and constantly checked the color until I was happy with it. Sewing. So this is the part of the project where I was really hoping I could live stream working on it, as sewing on my own is one of the hardest things for me. I'm so used to sewing in shops that it's a struggle. However, I could not for the life of me figure out a good way of getting my camera set up so you could actually see what I was doing. As the majority of the time, I had to hold the puppet either between me and the desk or between my knees so I had the best angle to sew the seams together. I will say, the fingers were the hardest part to sew together, as the baseball stitch that I was using for the rest caused a lot of overlapping materials in the fingertips due to them not having as much foam underneath. It just means they're not as pretty as I would have liked, and had I had the time, I might have seam ripped them and gone back and redone them. I will say, the forehead seam is the nicest seam I've ever sewn. Accessories! This last part is going to be all of the little details. So this is the shirt, the eyes, and the hair. Starting with the shirt, I wanted to make so many costumes for this thing, it wasn't funny. I nearly ended up making a little Beetlejuice jacket for it, but it didn't have the time. The shirt, on the other hand, is actually just a basic toddler shirt. I believe it's a 3T size that I got. I cut it down so that the torso wouldn't be fully covered by the shirt and would fit more like standard Muppet clothing. I believe I took about 3 to 4 inches off the bottom of the shirt. I hemmed it and then painted the logo on the front. It's just done with some fabric paint with a white base and yellow painted on top. I initially was going to go for a green shirt with the logo as to match Joe. However, I realized looking at the TCG cards, the shirt's actually red in it, and as such, the red just ended up being a better fit. The eyes I originally ordered online, only to find out they were a bit too small when they came in. I panicked for about 20 minutes, and then looked up what other people do, and a lot of people mentioned ping pong balls. 30 minutes later, and one trip to Canadian Tire, I had the right size eyes. Thank goodness for the save there. And last but not least, the hair. I wanted it to have a very Muppety feel to this, and I didn't like the look of the fur or faux fur or hair or any of those. And so the hair is actually made up of yarn. To cut it to the right length, I wrapped it around a box and tied it as a bunch on the top and cut it free. Because I had used the inner coil of the ball, it came out with an actually nice wave that looked great compared to the reference pictures. The hair is stitched down to the head with a matching thread to hide it. Looking back, I don't know if I would have added more hair to it, but I do love the look that it gives. So yeah, that's the Juppet. I can't wait to see how it does on the auction site. As I'm typing and recording this, it hasn't been posted yet, but I will make sure to add a link in the description when it does. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please go and support Joe Hills, the Hermits, and Gamers Outreach for this Gamers for Giving event. Cheers!